when we got things that we realize that we had to actually finish, or things that we laid down and picked up other things instead of accomplishing the dreams and goals that we had laid out for the past year or years prior, there is something we have to do about it. And today we're going to talk about getting ready for the new year. After the intro, let's get it.
You have one life. You got a calling and a purpose. Welcome to the Witness to Power podcast, the show that encourages and inspires you to be who God has called you to be. I'm your host and digital evangelist, Ashley Sims.
What's up, everybody? I hope you had a great Christmas holiday celebration where we reflect upon the significance of Christ's birth in the Christian faith. Well, we just recognize that he was born and that he lived and he died so that we could have freedom and the right to life everlasting and the right to just be who God has called you to be, to make a difference in your life while you travel upon this earth. As we get ready for this new year coming, I would like to just think about the things, the challenges that came forth over the past year. We met with some victories. We had more victories than actual defeats if we look at what we would consider not a victory. The things that we set forth to accomplish, a lot of checks in the right box, but then there see some things that we need to work on, some things that we definitely had to get going on because it's going to cause significant lag in the future. When you think about the things that you actually accomplished and how you can just give God the glory for it, that's awesome. Today we're going to focus on the things that we need to pick up. So we got to pick up the pace so that we can get online and on track with the vision and dream that God has given us, because there's something that you know that you should have done these last few months and you put it off. And that's where we need to change, because I know things happen, other things change, but sometimes we're good for putting things that we want to do on the back burner and making other things priority when we know that it's in our heart. There's a burning desire to be something, to be this thing. And I like to say who God has called you to be, that person, that goal, that vision, that dream. We always talk about our talents and our gifts, which is important, because operating your gift is actually going to help you be successful, have that thing that you desire to do, and walk in purpose most of all, because that's what we want. We want to be in that purpose, walking in the will of God, achieving those great things that we dream about and oftentimes think about. But we got to remember, we got to eliminate those things that trying to help us shortcut some things, because there's some processes that we desire to have, and there's processes that we have to go through that we want to avoid, because learning and getting wisdom so that we can be that person. Because you think about where you are now and where you were before, and the understanding that you have now and the wisdom that you apply now opposed to 5 years ago. Let's say the person that you met today, like the person you met somebody today and you talked to them. Let's say you met them 5 years ago. You wouldn't be able to actually give them as much wisdom as you are now as opposed to 5 years ago, because you learned a little more, you're a little wiser, you took more action steps. And that's what we got to begin to do. We've got to take these victories in Christ. We've got to take these defeats, and we got to take these experiences and begin to formulate a system to understand where we're going. The first thing that we got to deal with in preparing for the new year is dealing what you are focusing on and what do you want to change. Because I began focusing on several things. It was one objective I had, and because I didn't like where it was going, I stopped. But it was something that I needed to finish, because we got to be finishers of what we start. That's one of my main affirmations when I speak every day. I'm a finisher of what I start, because I know as a creator, I love creating things. But sometimes you like the euphoria of creating something new, and you get on that for a while, and then something else comes up. So we have to begin to pick up the work that God has given us and have that vision for it, that blueprint, and follow it. And there's one thing that I know I have to change is making sure that I focus on that blueprint, because sometimes I don't have it in front of me. And that's the thing. We always say out of sight, out of mind, which is true. If you have a life that's full of people and things and experience and things that you are responsible for, especially if you're a leader, there's a lot of people depending on your wisdom, your choices, and things of that nature. And sometimes you could put yourself behind the power curve because you are instructing and helping others get to where they're going. And that's no excuse, because God's gifted you to be able to do that. So we got to change that. We got to deal with what are we focusing on? What is that goal that we have to achieve? That one thing. Like Paul said, this one thing that I do. There's something that we know we have to do, but it looks like the toughest thing, but actually it comes easy to you. It's just, you're not putting in a lot of work. And then sometimes it comes easy to you, say, oh, I'll put that off and I'll deal with that in the future, because it comes easy to you because it's one of your gifts. But it's not always the sexiest things, as we say, appealing thing that we want to do. It's something else that looks more glorious than what we have sometimes. But we have to have that vision that God given us and focus in on that. And if we haven't wrote it out, we got to write that vision, and we got to rewrite that vision. The second thing we got to deal with is that someday mentality. I will get to it someday. Someday I will do this. Someday I will. Because sometimes we will unintentionally say, I'll get to that tomorrow. I'll do that next week. We'll write it down somewhere that we don't remember where we put it, and we'll get moving and doing our thing. And then later on, we're reminded of, wow, I was supposed to do that 2 weeks ago. And this happened a lot to me. I'm like, a lot of projects come across my desk and I plan for it, but you never know what a day may bring. And what we do, and I do sometimes, is that I will get to it on this day, that someday mentality. And when that day comes, guess what? Something else pertinent has took my attention. So we must every day have our vision right ahead of us, in front of us, on a notepad or something that we can look at and say, hey, this I will do. Because that reminds you. It's like looking in God's word. And we always say, remind God of what he said to us, his word. Well, we have to do it ourselves too as well. We got to have that vision in front of us, the blueprint, so we can follow it and so we can eliminate that someday and make it now. They always say the best day to do something was yesterday, but the next best day to do it is right now. And so we got to eliminate that and begin to look at and taking ourselves serious in the things we want to do. And the third thing we want to deal with, and the final thing, is we must pick up the dream we put down because of our circumstances. Sometimes, it's like I said before, we have a good intention. We didn't mean to do it. It's just that it seems like the weight of the world was upon us, and this is more important than the thing that we haven't created yet. Because I can see this right now. I can see it. I know we was talking about how Peter walked on water. He asked Jesus, can he come out there first? And we got to look at that, how Peter asked this thing of the Lord and Jesus granted it to him. So Peter stepped over the boat into the water. He took his leap of faith into the water and he began to walk. However, his natural thought process started messing with his faith. And that's what happens to us. We start looking at everything else around us and stop focusing on the one that we asked and the one who gave it to us, the vision, the plan, and the dream. And we begin to sink in foolishness. We begin to sink in the worries of the world. We begin to sink in family matters, business matters, financial matters, physical matters, mental matters. And we begin to stop focusing on what is actually the goal and the dream and the vision. And we stop walking in purpose. We start sinking. And then we ask the Lord to help us out. And the Lord pulls us up. We go back to maybe later. Someday I'll get to that. Let me focus on this right now. That seems hard. I'll get back to that. So while we're getting ready for the new year, there's some things that we got to eliminate and some things that we have to tighten up. Because if we don't, we're going to live out the famous saying. If you do what you always do, you're going to get what you always got. Or doing the same thing and expecting different results. That's what's happening. You're locking in and you're essentially fooling yourself by looking at the same things and living in the past, your accomplishments, and say, I've done this. I can do this. I'll get to it. I got victories. There's some things that we got to move out the way, that we have to change so that we can walk in the newness, walk in the freedoms of Christ, and walk in the victory that we know we have. So we're going to get ready for this new year by changing some things and dealing with some things and making things happen. And we're going to pick this conversation up again. I'm glad you had a great Christmas, great holiday season. I know I did. We'll talk again. Reach one, reach many. Be blessed. Until the next time, have an awesome week.
Have you ever felt that you've not lived up to your full potential? Or maybe you felt that you have no idea what you truly want out of life, but you feel you can do more than what you're doing now? Then I have the book for you, 21 Steps to Walk in Purpose, to help you shake off the stagnation and fogginess into doing your purpose. Go to walkinpurposenow.com. Yes, that's walkinpurposenow.com and grab your copy today and walk in the purpose that you know is designed for you. Remember, I believe in you. So go and grab your copy of 21 Steps to Walk in Purpose and live the purpose that I know you have within you to live.
Thanks again for listening to another episode of the Witness the Power Podcast. Don't forget to check us out at www.witnessthepowerpodcast.com. And also subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. And be sure to check out the Witness the Power fan page on Facebook. Have a great week.